September 12, 2025, Eastern Ukraine. The night sky was clear, but the battlefield glowed with infrared, the eyes of hundreds of Ukrainian drones already circling above. On the ground, Russian armor rumbled forward, columns of T-72 and T-90 tanks, supported by BMP infantry carriers, moving under cover of darkness toward the outskirts of Avdiivka. Moscow's generals believed this push could finally punch a hole through the Ukrainian defenses. The tanks advanced in confidence. Their engines roared, their turrets scanned, their crews convinced that steel and firepower would carry them forward. But war in 2025 no longer belonged to tanks. It belonged to drones. At 22:15, the first wave launched. From bunkers, trenches, and hidden barns, Ukrainian FPV drone operators pushed their joysticks forward. Tiny quadcopters, loaded with explosives, darted into the night. They flew low, hugging tree lines, weaving between buildings. In seconds, they swarmed toward the Russian convoy. Target locked, sending it. The radio chatter crackled as one drone dove into the lead T-72. A white flash lit the road. The tank's turret blew upward in a fireball. Seconds later, another FPV screamed into a BMP's rear hatch, detonating its ammo. The vehicle erupted in flames, silhouettes of fleeing soldiers caught in the explosion. Within 5 minutes, the Russian spearhead collapsed into chaos. Tanks swerved, some colliding as drivers tried to escape. Crews fired machine guns wildly into the dark, but there was nothing to hit. Only buzzing shadows that appeared from nowhere, struck, and vanished in fire. Overhead, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones streamed live footage back to command posts. On screens in Kiev and Warsaw, analysts watched in disbelief as the invincible Russian armor turned into burning wrecks one by one. By 22:30, more than 40 Russian vehicles were disabled or destroyed. The battlefield glowed with fire, an apocalyptic vision captured by drone cameras, instantly uploaded to social media. Within hours, the world saw the footage. Cheap $500 drones shredding multi-million-dollar tanks. Russian electronic warfare units scrambled to respond, blasting the airwaves with jamming signals. Operators in Ukrainian basements fought to keep control of their drones. Some signals cut out mid-flight, but many drones had backup navigation, programmed to dive straight into the largest heat signature. Even jammed, they became kamikazes. For the Russian crews trapped inside burning armor, there was no defense. ERA bricks and thick steel were useless against explosive charges slamming directly into engines, turrets, and vision ports. One T-90 tried to reverse, only to be hit in the rear deck by 2 drones in quick succession. Its ammunition cooked off, launching the turret into the sky like a rocket. By midnight, the assault was over. What began as a proud armored offensive ended as a graveyard of steel. Over 70 Russian vehicles were destroyed or abandoned. Drone footage showed tanks burning in rows, their hulks scattered across the steppe. And for Ukraine, the message was clear. The battlefield had changed forever. Tanks were no longer kings. Drones ruled the night. What do you think? Are we watching the death of the tank as a weapon of war? Or will Russia adapt and find a way to fight back? Drop your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and hit the bell to never miss our frontline war simulations. And by becoming a sponsor of Navy Warfare, you not only keep this channel alive, you also help support Ukrainian soldiers and civilians suffering under Russian missile strikes. This was only the beginning. Russia would not stop with one failed assault. The question was, how would Moscow respond to a war it no longer understood? The wreckage of the failed Russian assault still smoldered on the steppe when Moscow ordered its next move. The humiliation was impossible to ignore. Dozens of tanks, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, destroyed by drones that cost less than a smartphone. Kremlin propagandists avoided the footage, but the images were already viral. Russian armor burning, drone operators in Ukraine celebrating. The death of the tank was trending worldwide. But Russia would not let the narrative end there. By dawn, new tactics were in play. At 05:30 on September 13, 2025, Russian artillery units unleashed a barrage along the entire Avdiivka front. Grad rocket launchers, Smerch heavy rockets, and 140 mm howitzers rained shells on Ukrainian villages, suspected of housing drone operators. Entire blocks were flattened in minutes. For the Russians, if they couldn't stop the drones in the sky, they would crush the humans controlling them on the ground. Simultaneously, Krasuka 4 electronic warfare systems rolled into position. Their powerful antennas hummed, filling the air with jamming signals. Ukrainian operators suddenly saw their screens flicker. Drones froze mid-air, their feeds scrambled into static. But Ukraine had prepared. Many FPVs were modified with anti-jam receivers and pre-programmed strike routes. Even when blinded, they dove toward the nearest Russian heat signature, tank engines, troop carriers, or even the electronic warfare trucks themselves. Within an hour, video showed 2 Krasukas erupting in flames, destroyed by the very drones they tried to neutralize. At Euro 710, Russia escalated further. From airfields in occupied Crimea, Orlan 10 reconnaissance drones and Lancet kamikaze drones lifted off, their mission to strike Ukrainian artillery and drone launch sites. For the first time, the drone war went both ways. One Lancet found its mark, slamming into a Ukrainian artillery position, killing several gunners and destroying a Western-supplied M777 howitzer. Russian state TV broadcast the footage on repeat, claiming justice for the lost tanks. But Ukraine adapted faster. FPV swarms hunted the Lancets mid-air, slamming into them before they reached targets. Operators laughed as they scored drone-on-drone kills, turning the skies into chaotic battles of buzzing machines. By mid-morning, both sides were locked in an escalating cycle. Russia fired artillery to destroy drone nests. Ukraine launched drones to destroy the artillery. Russia sent Lancets to kill the drone teams. Ukraine sent drones to intercept the Lancets. It was a war within a war, the first full-scale drone versus drone battlefield in history. And yet, despite Russia's desperate efforts, the numbers told the story. By noon, Ukrainian drones had destroyed another 25 armored vehicles, including 3 T-90Ms, the pride of Russia's tank fleet. Russian soldiers abandoned equipment rather than risk waiting for the buzzing death above. The Kremlin's gamble was backfiring. Each adaptation only revealed more weaknesses. Electronic warfare couldn't cover every sector. Artillery couldn't hit drones that moved too fast. Russian drones were fewer, less reliable, and often shot down before reaching their targets. By evening, Ukrainian commanders announced the obvious. Drones dominate the front. Russia's tanks are no longer safe. For Moscow, this was a nightmare. For Kiev, it was proof that technology and ingenuity could offset numbers. What do you think? Has the battlefield entered a new era where tanks are obsolete, or will Russia find a way to adapt? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next chapter of this war simulation. And remember, by becoming a sponsor of Navy Warfare, you not only support this channel, you help deliver aid to Ukrainian soldiers and civilians suffering from Russian missile strikes. The drones had won round 2, but Russia wasn't finished. The next move would test not just machines, but the will of nations. By September 15, 2025, the Ukrainian command saw an opportunity too great to ignore. Russia's armor was in retreat, its artillery struggling, and its electronic warfare crippled. For the first time in months, the balance on the front tilted toward Ukraine. The decision was made: turn defense into offense, and let the drones lead the way. At 04, the operation began. Instead of a single wave, Ukraine launched a rolling swarm. Hundreds of FPV drones, grouped in squads of 10, each tasked with specific targets. Some hunted tanks, others hunted supply trucks. Some were even modified with shaped charges designed to pierce bunkers and fortified trenches. Operators sat in concealed bunkers wearing goggles, gripping controllers. Their screens came alive as the swarm surged forward. Overhead, reconnaissance drones relayed positions, marking Russian vehicles like glowing dots on a radar screen. At 0512, the first Russian convoy was struck. Supply trucks loaded with ammunition erupted in fireballs as drones dove straight into fuel tanks. Explosions cascaded down the line, setting off secondary blasts. Within minutes, an entire battalion's resupply effort vanished in smoke. Next came the tanks. T-72s and T-90s dug into defensive positions. tried to hold their ground. But the drones came in low, buzzing through tree lines, skimming across fields. Operators guided them into engine vents, turret rings, and open hatches. One by one, the tanks lit up, their armor useless against pinpoint strikes. By dawn, another 40 armored vehicles were destroyed or abandoned. But Ukraine didn't stop there. At 0630, drone teams unleashed something new: mothership drones. Larger UAVs carried and released smaller FPVs mid-flight, launching them directly above Russian lines. The effect was devastating. Russian troops, already rattled, watched as drones literally dropped out of the sky onto their trenches. Panic spread. Units fled their positions, leaving weapons behind. Russian commanders attempted to respond with air power. Su-25 ground attack jets screamed over the battlefield, firing rockets into suspected drone nests. But Ukraine was ready. Manpads teams and mobile air defenses fired back, downing 2 aircraft within minutes. More importantly, drones targeted the jets themselves. Footage captured FPVs chasing low-flying Su-25s, forcing them to break off runs. For the first time, even Russian aircraft were harassed by buzzing, suicidal machines. By midday, Ukrainian infantry advanced behind the swarm. Supported by artillery and long-range HIMARS strikes, they retook ground that had been contested for months. Villages flattened by earlier shelling were raised with Ukrainian flags. Soldiers filmed themselves walking past the carcasses of Russian tanks, each marked by the scorch of drone strikes. On Russian social media, panic spread faster than the retreat. Videos leaked of soldiers begging for more anti-drone gear, claiming they were being hunted from the air. Mothers demanded answers in Moscow. Why were their sons dying to $500 toys when Russia spent billions on tanks? By evening, the scale of the disaster was undeniable. Ukrainian drones had destroyed over 100 vehicles in a single day. Russia's counterattacks had failed. Entire brigades were forced to withdraw, leaving the front lines exposed. The world took notice. NATO analysts briefed their governments. We are witnessing the end of traditional armored warfare. Pentagon officials admitted privately that even U.S. tanks would struggle against swarms of cheap, agile drones. Defense contractors scrambled to pitch new anti-drone systems, knowing the market had just shifted forever. For Ukraine, it was not just a battlefield victory. It was a message. Ingenuity could beat numbers. David could slay Goliath with a swarm of flying stones. But Moscow was not finished. Putin, humiliated again, hinted at escalation. On state TV, he declared, "Russia will not be defeated by insects. We will respond with the full power of our arsenal." The implication was clear. The next phase might not be drones versus tanks. It might be something far darker. What do you think? Has Ukraine's drone offensive already rewritten the future of war, or will Russia's promised full arsenal change the battlefield once again? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and hit the bell to never miss our frontline war simulations. And by becoming a sponsor of Navy Warfare, you're supporting this channel and helping deliver aid to Ukrainian soldiers and civilians suffering under Russian missile strikes. The swarm had carried Ukraine forward, but Russia's answer was still coming. By September 18, 2025, the Russian front was in crisis. Footage of burning tanks filled the internet. Ukrainian soldiers advanced behind swarms of FPVs, and NATO officials quietly admitted Russia's armored doctrine had collapsed. What was once the pride of the Kremlin, steel columns rolling west, was now reduced to smoldering wrecks hunted by drones worth less than a rifle. For Vladimir Putin, humiliation was not an option. On state television, he framed the disaster differently. Russia is not losing to drones. We are fighting NATO itself, and we will answer. At dawn, that answer came. At 05:00, Russia launched its largest missile strike in months. Iskander ballistic missiles, Kaliber cruise missiles, and Kinzhal hypersonics tore across Ukrainian skies. Over 120 missiles and more than 200 Shahed drones targeted airfields, command centers, and power stations. In Kyiv, air defenses roared, but explosions still rocked the city. In Lviv, transformers burned. In Odessa, the port lay crippled once more. The message was clear. Russia would escalate beyond the battlefield. But even in this massive barrage, the new reality was unavoidable. Ukrainian drone teams kept flying. As Russian missiles rained down, FPVs launched from basements, warehouses, and trenches, diving into Russian armor massed for counterattacks. By noon, another 40 vehicles were destroyed. The missile storm hadn't stopped the swarm. Frustrated, the Kremlin turned to threats. State propagandists openly spoke of tactical nuclear options. Russian generals hinted that if NATO continued supplying Ukraine with advanced drone technology, Moscow might redefine the battlefield entirely. For the first time in months, Western capitals openly discussed the nuclear risk. In Washington, President Donald Trump issued a statement. "America stands with Ukraine, but we will not be dragged into Russia's nuclear games. We are watching closely." In Brussels, NATO remained divided. Some leaders urged sending advanced counter-drone systems to Ukraine immediately. Others feared escalation. The alliance's hesitation only emboldened Moscow further. Meanwhile, on the ground, the reality was undeniable. Russian soldiers filmed themselves abandoning tanks before even leaving their staging areas, terrified of the buzzing death overhead. Entire armored battalions were left behind, cannibalized for parts or torched to prevent capture. Soldiers whispered bitter jokes. Better to fight without a tank than die inside one. By September 20th, analysts across the globe reached the same conclusion. The age of the tank was ending. The drone had rewritten the rules of land warfare forever. But the cost was rising. Ukrainian cities burned under missile fire. Civilians died in blackouts. And looming over it all was the question: if drones could shatter Russia's armor, what would Moscow do to restore its pride? On September 21st, Putin gave his answer in a chilling speech. "Russia will not surrender. If the West continues this path, we will respond with weapons the world has not yet seen." The implication was unmistakable. The swarm war had humiliated Russia. But now the threat was moving beyond drones, beyond tanks, beyond missiles. The line between conventional war and global catastrophe blurred. Ukraine had won the drone battles, but would the world pay the price of Russia's fury? What do you think? Has the drone revolution ended the era of tanks, or has it only pushed Russia closer to nuclear escalation? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and hit the bell so you never miss our frontline war simulations. By becoming a sponsor of Navy Warfare, you help keep this channel alive and deliver real aid to Ukrainian soldiers and civilians suffering from Russian missile strikes. The drone storm had changed the battlefield forever, but it had also unleashed a darker question. What comes after drones when a cornered Russia decides to strike back?